Will he be in a good mood or not?
Deciding frame. Ronnie O'Sullivan to break.
Always breaks off left-handed, Sean. Any scientific reason?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I remember asking Ray Reardon that question because obviously they paired up together, and I worked with Ray for a little while. Watch Elliot Slessor try and slot this red in. Must avoid the red by the black. Well done. Expertly played.
One.
I seem to remember Ray being of the opinion, in a bit like a golf scenario, for a right-hander it's easier to hit a fade to make the ball go left to right. I seem to remember Ray being of the opinion that as a left-handed player it was easier to play with right-hand side than left-hand side. And I've got a feeling that might be why Ronnie chooses to break from between brown and yellow, but use the other hand. I think it might have come from Ray, that, believing he could get more on.
6.
Begs the question why he didn't just switch sides and play with play right-handed, but with left-hand side between brown and green, but he's always done his own thing.
7.
Thing is, these days, though, is what we're seeing illustrates the break-off has to be so accurate.
Yeah, and the game's changed, you see, beyond all recognition, really. Although to the casual observer, snooker doesn't look to have changed over the years. The table's still green, has 6 pockets and 22 balls on the table. Every part of that equation has changed. And one of those elements is the balls have got a lot lighter. There's a old footage on YouTube flying around of, I think, Doug Mountjoy playing in top black, breaking off against Pullman. He breaks off and almost resets the balls perfectly. Because the balls are now so light, that can't happen anymore. And it's become such an important shot because that could be Ronnie O'Sullivan's last shot in this match. It is amazing that we haven't yet, as a body of players, come up with a better option. But I'm not sure what it is. It's not for the lack of trying, I can assure you.
Well, don't want to goad you into controversy, Sean, but what are your views on the Mark Williams break, which he was employing earlier this season and last, where he was coming off the top cushion into the bunch?
Yeah, I think a lot of players have just become sick of potentially their break-off being their last and only contribution to the frame. And I think I actually have nothing wrong with it. I mean, the break-off is just to get the match started, isn't it? It's just to start the frame, and that's all that does. You have to decide if you think the break-off's an attacking shot or a defensive shot. The idea being to get another turn. Well, in which case, Mark Williams' break ticks all the boxes. He didn't lose many frames by doing it. And that, of course, that's the job, isn't it?
In our last segment of matches in the Championship League here, Neil Robertson actually employed that break on one occasion. Anyway, the sum and substance of this is that Slessor's got a great chance to get the verdict.
38.
He's just lost the cue ball, though, at the wrong time. You can see he's stopped himself there in his tracks. He's not on this black correctly. Black's going to put him 45 ahead. Where does the next red come from? Is there one possibly available to the yellow pocket? Sure. He wanted more angle than that to split the reds. Just lost the cue ball at the wrong time. That red that's closest to the cue ball to be potable. Very tight past the other one.
45.
Shake of the head from Elliot, so that tells us that he's not on that red correctly. It's very, very tight. May be able to pot the one next to it, but the cue ball will be running into traffic, so that's got risk attached, and 45-point lead could evaporate in seconds. So possibly the biggest stage of the match right here. Was taught by a dear friend John in the club where I grew up. If in doubt, play safe. Obviously I ignored him for most of my career, but does this red go?
Slessor 45.
You can see the reaction from Elliot. It's as if he knew the red didn't pot, and yet he still went for it. Didn't like it, but played it anyway. The mind of a snooker player, Phil. Didn't like this, but still played it. Maybe it turned off. Don't know.
One.
Well, that one didn't. O'Sullivan dispatching. Wishful thinking sometimes comes into it.
Six.
Do you think players from yesteryear, Phil, you know, from the 70s and the early 80s, players obviously who are no longer around playing the game, I think they would, if they could see the way the game's played today and the risks that players take, would they cringe or would they be impressed?
Some would cringe, some would be impressed. But I think the ones who were impressed would be the correct ones.
Ronnie wasn't impressed with the result of that shot. The cue ball did seem to die off those two cushions. He's still on the shred, but not as he meant to be. Now he needs a good angle on the colour here, wants to avoid the brown. And if he does get past the brown, he'll be perfect on it. And he is. Wouldn't put the cue ball better with his hand now. Pot the brown on and off the side cushion. Smidge of right-hand side. And if he gets this cannon correct, could be game over. Well, he didn't get the cannon as played. And that's not unlucky. That's not, he didn't hit the red he meant to hit. He meant to hit the one right in the middle of that bunch. But of course, as we always say, he got the pot, and that means he can play the first safety shot, which isn't one of his best. Goes without saying, though, Elliot on very thin ice here now, to be very, very careful. Very, very nicely played. There is nobody better in the game at this shot. You can see he's playing it with left-hand side, and that just means pairing the cue ball away from the red as it comes down the table. Such a skillful shot that Ronnie's just played. Looks like a nothing shot. That cue ball was always arcing away from the red. Didn't go in a straight line. Was always pulling away to encourage that thin contact, and that put Elliot Slessor in a world of trouble. The amount of side he's having to play this to get round the blue. Caught it way too thin, needs cover, hasn't got it. So that great safety shot from Ronnie that looked so innocent has now given him a chance to counter.
I think he'd enjoy building a decisive break here, considering the way it was created.
Always interesting watching Ronnie go about these breaks, because there's a correct sequence. You have to take the reds in to make the breaks that bit much easier. It's not all about cue ball control. You can see purposely played the angle on the pink to get to the red on the black spot. Didn't want to pot the black before this red was moved. Seems obvious, but a lot of players miss
14.
it. Then they end up in trouble. Not O'Sullivan. Needs an angle on the next colour to get to the other side of the table for the red in the opposite pocket by the black,
15.
which he's got perfectly on the pink. And Elliot's hopes now rest on the black that Ronnie's about to play after this next red, because he'll be holding for the black. Looks at the angle there. That's where I want to be. That leads to the cannon on the two reds on the cushion,
21.
which should lead him to the frame. The next cannon on the black could be game over.
22.
Bear in mind, he has missed one important red along that top cushion already. That's why he wanted to make that as simple as possible. And talk about on the nose.
29. 30.
At the Welsh Open. What an achievement that is.
41.
Beating him over any distance is an achievement. 15 in front. Make that 18, so the brown is frame and match ball. What we've seen, Sean, he's not here on a jolly.
55.
That was a brew of brilliance and brinkmanship. Back-to-back 3-2 victories for Ronnie O'Sullivan. He moves to the top of the Group 7 table.